What on earth is the BABoK? Many of you might have heard this term as part of your work, or somebody would have told you BABoK is a great standard to study. And especially if you are in the business analysis profession, it's very likely that you might have heard this term called BABoK. So BABoK actually stands for Business Analysis Body of Knowledge.
Let me guess. You are probably watching this video as you fall in one of these three categories. You are a newbie planning to kickstart your career as a business analyst. You are longing to enhance your business analysis skills. You are already facing stagnation in your career as a business analyst. Regardless of which stage you are in your career, the right certification from International Institute of Business Analysis, the world's most recognized BA certification body, can propel your career to new heights. You can command a higher salary and make yourself stand out among your peers. Finding the right training partner for your certification needs can be daunting. You need someone who can deliver guaranteed results without breaking your bank. With a 100% money-back guarantee and 100% past success rate, with the world's finest mentors, you are in the safest hands. We support you till you succeed. Adaptive US is the most preferred BA training institute in the world. With Adaptive, get yourself certified or get your money back, whether you are a newbie or ready for the advanced certification. We have the right course for you. We share the risk and reward with you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today and skyrocket your BA career with Adaptive US.
So there are two key parts to this name. One is business analysis and one is body of knowledge. So let's first understand what is business analysis. In fact, business analysis is a very kind of a conflicting term. You hear many people talking business analysis in many ways. The one which we are going to discuss in this particular learning series is focused on business requirements analysis. That is what we are going to focus in this particular course. If you're interested in business data analysis, we of course have another course. If you're interested in business strategy analysis, we have another course. So for this course, we are going to focus on business requirements analysis. And requirements are essentially the needs, problems, and opportunities in front of the organization. Every organization will have some needs, some problems, some opportunities in hand. Analysis would mean getting deeper into a particular subject so that we can understand it very well and we can manage it very, very well. So now you understand the term business analysis. Now, what is body of knowledge and how does a body of knowledge look like? A body of knowledge is a collection of experiences, practices created with hundreds of practitioners. It's not my knowledge, it's not somebody else's knowledge all alone. This is a collective wisdom of many, many professionals. The other aspect about a body of knowledge is it also helps you to assess your knowledge on the subject by conducting multiple tests for you. So the body of knowledge is essentially a book, and you can actually write tests to qualify on your knowledge based on the book. In fact, the BABoK comes from an organization by the name IIBA, which is International Institute of Business Analysis, headquartered in Canada. They have branches and chapters almost in every part of the world, and currently IIBA has more than 30,000 registered members. So it is the largest community of business analysis practitioners. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. I have been associated with IIBA, BABoK, teaching for a very long time, and I happen to also hold 2 of the world records in the field of business analysis. I'm the first and the only business analyst today who has completed all 6 available IIBA certifications. So I'm pretty qualified to talk to you because I have completed all 6 of them. Secondly, I also hold the world record for mentoring maximum number of stakeholders to complete the certifications based on BABoK. So there are primarily 3 certifications which are based on BABoK, and we are going to create additional videos on them as well. ECBA, CCBA, and cbap. Anyway, now back to our discussion on BABoK. So essentially, BABoK provides guidance on the necessary skills and knowledge that every business analyst must possess. And it also describes the best practices to be followed in conducting business analysis activities. Also remember, it is a guidebook. It is not a law or a statute or a standard. So it gives you plenty of flexibility to adapt your practices against BABoK practices. It is perfectly possible that you have a slightly different context and you may use some part of BABoK or most part of the BABoK depending on your project context. Coming back to the BABoK guide, what does it contain? In fact, out of fun nature, we also call it an orange book because the cover happens to be in orange color. So you can see the cover of the image, cover of BABoK in front of you. It has many sections. It starts with an introduction to business analysis where it explains what is business analysis. Then business analysis key concepts. What are the elements of business analysis which we must learn? Then it provides us with 6 knowledge areas, which we are going to talk in a short while. Each knowledge area is basically a collection of few business analysis tasks. All total, there are 30 tasks in BABoK. Then it also talks about underlying competencies, that is the behavioral skills that a BA must have in order to be effective. Then it provides us with 50 techniques generally practiced in business analysis. It also has a chapter called Perspectives, which is essentially to adapt business analysis in different types of projects like information technology projects, data type of projects, agile type of projects. That's what it does in Perspectives. Perspectives are not part of the certification test, so you don't have to worry that much about the perspectives. Glossary. It also defines terms that is used in business analysis, and it expects business analysts across the globe to use common terms so that all of us can understand each other. Welcome back to the e-learning on business analysis body of knowledge version 3.0. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. In our previous video, we just saw what is BABoK guide as such and what does it provide. And in that, we also touched upon a fact that BABoK has 6 knowledge areas. So what are these knowledge areas and what do they do? Each knowledge area comprises of anywhere between 4 to 6 tasks that we business analysts are expected to perform. And each knowledge area has a specific focus. So in front of you, you see the interaction map between all the 6 knowledge areas in BABoK. And as you can see, every knowledge area is likely to touch every other knowledge area. So there is no sequence as such, although typically we may start with planning or typically we may start with solution evaluation. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview of these knowledge areas, and in our subsequent videos, we are going to go through each knowledge area in detail, including every task in the knowledge area. So the first knowledge area in BABoK is business analysis planning and monitoring. And obviously, like any other framework, and most of the frameworks today actually start with planning because they understand planning is so crucial to success of any change initiative. And that's how BABoK also starts with planning. And in that, it actually provides us with 5 tasks. The first one being plan BA approach, which is essentially to plan our business analysis activities. Plan stakeholder engagement. How do we work with different stakeholders? Plan BA governance. How do we manage our business analysis outcomes and the deliverables and the requirements that we collect in our way? Plan BA information management. Whatever information we are collecting, how do we manage them? And of course, identify BA performance improvements. We would always like to do better and better and better over a period of time. And this is the task that asks us to do that. Then the second knowledge area is elicitation and collaboration. And in that, we have again 5 tasks. The first one is to prepare for elicitation. Second one is to conduct elicitation. The third one is to confirm elicitation results. The fourth one is to communicate BA information. And the fifth one is to manage stakeholder collaboration. Remember, we are going to cover all these tasks in detail, and here in this video, just be aware of what you are going to see going forward in the course. Then comes the third knowledge area, which is requirements lifecycle management. And in that, again, we have 5 tasks. So 5, 5, 5, already 15 tasks done with these 3 knowledge areas. So the first one being trace requirements. The second one is maintain requirements. The third one is prioritize requirements. The fourth one is assess requirements changes. And the fifth one is coming to the fourth knowledge area, which is strategy analysis. And this happens to be a little short knowledge area because you have only 4 tasks in this knowledge area. So what are the 4 tasks? 1, analyze current state. 2, define future state. 3, assess risks. And fourth one is to define change strategy. Strategy analysis is very important for any change because that tells us the best way to move forward in our solution designing. Then the next knowledge area is requirement analysis and design definition. And this knowledge area has actually 6 tasks compared to other knowledge areas which had 5 and strategy analysis had 4. This is the big one. And that's why, in fact, in the examination, you will have maximum number of questions coming from this particular knowledge area. So what are the tasks in this knowledge area? The first one is specify and model requirements. Second one is verify requirements. Third one is validate requirements. Fourth one is define requirements architecture. It's a peculiar term. We'll learn about all this in our subsequent video. Remember, BABoK sometimes uses terms which may not be that commonly used, but it is technically much more correct. Then define design options, and the last one being analyze potential value and recommend solution option. The last knowledge area is solution evaluation, and in fact we should read it as solution performance evaluation. It's not to evaluate solution to implement, but it's to improve solution performance. And there are again 5 tasks in this knowledge area: measure solution performance, analyze performance measures, assess solution limitations, assess enterprise limitations, and recommend actions to increase solution value. So these are the 6 knowledge areas that you will see in BABoK, and we are of course going to discuss every knowledge area, every task in detail. Welcome back to the e-learning on BABoK version 3.0. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. In our previous videos, we looked at what is BABoK, how does it help us, all the practitioners of business analysis, the knowledge areas that BABoK has, and a quick rundown of all the techniques that BABoK has. Now, I'm going to touch upon few important terms that we all should understand before we study BABoK. BABoK is not a very easy document to understand, let me warn you. I have been studying it for almost last 10 years now. I think I studied V2, then I studied V3, and I find V3 to be a little bit more complex compared to V2, which is understandable because the standard is evolving. But I'm hoping in V4, we will have a much simpler structure. So what are the terms that we should understand? Business analysis has two words, business and analysis. So it's important to understand what is business. And if you look at the history behind this word, it came from the term busyness. That means something that keeps you busy. And that was occupation. So occupations gave rise to the world of business. And today, probably 80% of human population is engaged in some kind of a business activity. And that's how they share value with their customers and they earn value for themselves as well. Then comes something called analysis. And if you look at analysis, an analysis is essentially to drill down, or if you look at formally, I have taken it from Wikipedia, analysis is the process of breaking a complex topic or substance into smaller parts in order to get a better understanding of it. So analysis helps us to understand things much better. And if you look at BABoK, we are essentially interested in analyzing business requirements. So we are going to actually drill down and make or expand business requirements to make it available for our stakeholders. Then how does BABoK define business analysis? It is this: practice of bringing about a change within an enterprise, could be an organization, product, and process as well, by identifying needs and coming up with solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. This is how BABoK defines business analysis. In fact, we made a slightly improved version of this definition. Maybe you like this. Practice of bringing about a positive change. We want a positive change within a or an process, organization, product, or enterprise, anything, by identifying needs, which are nothing but problems and opportunities, and coming up with solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. Then we use this word called requirement, and BABoK defines requirement as a usable representation of a need. So you have a need, like you are hungry and you want to fulfill your hunger. And you ask the shopkeeper, saying, give me a sandwich. Then you have specified a requirement. Then comes design. Design is a usable representation of a solution which focuses on understanding the value which might be realized by the solution. So essentially, it's a usable representation of a solution. Then comes the term enterprise. An enterprise is a system of one or more organizations. That means organizations belong to the enterprise, and solutions. Not only organizations, but solutions as well, that they pursue with a shared set of common goals. So every organization is trying to achieve a common goal. And typically, an enterprise can be a legal entity or a company or a group of companies. Then comes organization. Organization is an autonomous group of people working towards achieving common goals and objectives. And typically, an organization is under the control of an individual or a board. Then there's a term called plan, which is a proposal for doing or achieving something. So if you are planning to get yourself certified, you should have a proposal for doing it and you should know how to get it done. Then we will come to three kinds of requirements that we will discuss in BABoK. One is called business requirement, and this is coming typically from a business owner perspective and typically focused on why the change is being done. What is it that we are expecting to achieve by getting something done? At the second level, we have something called stakeholder requirements, which are essentially requirements or expectations from our stakeholders and end users from the solution that we are trying to build. Then at the third level, we have a requirement called solution requirement, which is essentially being developed by business analysts to help our developer friends implement the solution. And our developer friends obviously need a lot more detail. And typically, we divide solution requirements into two parts. One is functional and one is non-functional requirement. People typically get confused between these two types of requirements, so I will keep that discussion to another video. Then comes another term called transition requirements, which are essentially something that needs to be done to migrate successfully from an existing solution to a new solution. It's very natural that we will change our solutions over a period of time because solutions may become obsolete, our needs may change. But when we do that migration, we must make sure that the data that we had in the previous system comes to the new system. We are not going to leave the data and start afresh. That doesn't work. Then you will also hear a term called business analysis information, which is essentially all the information that we are gathering, we are eliciting, we are maintaining, we are developing as part of our business analysis process. It could be requirements, plans, solution options, models, designs, requirements traceability matrix. Everything goes under the umbrella of business analysis information. How to avoid disasters in your project. Someone very nicely said, and probably wisely said as well, pain is unavoidable in a large project. You cannot avoid some amount of pain, but suffering is. Let me narrate a very interesting incident that happened with us, and when I look back, I realized that we did not do something well, which is why we suffered. So in this particular project, after 100 person years of work, suddenly a new requirement is discovered or a group of requirements are discovered from a particular stakeholder group, which required us to make another 40 person months of extra work, which was not planned in the project. It's a lot of work. And why did it happen? Because we did not engage our stakeholders very well. So from that, you realize how critical it is to plan and monitor your project very, very closely. Welcome to the first knowledge area of BABoK, which is BA Planning and Monitoring. We already had a little bit of a brief intro about the knowledge area in our knowledge area discussion, but now we are going to get into every task in the knowledge area and then understand what do we try to achieve through these tasks. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. So if you remember, the purpose of this knowledge area is to organize and coordinate efforts of business analysts and other stakeholders. So at the end of this knowledge area, we should be able to decide how we, business analysts, and our stakeholders, like our domain SMEs, end users, project manager, sponsor, and everybody else, are able to work together in a coherent manner. So we essentially decide who does what, when, and how. It's a very important technique, a very important knowledge area, because this is guiding our all other subsequent tasks. So there are 5 tasks in this knowledge area, which we will discuss one after another. The first one is plan BA approach. The second one is plan stakeholder engagement. The third one is plan BA governance. The fourth one is plan BA information management. And the fifth one is identify BA performance improvements. So we are going to take a look at each of these tasks one by one. Do you want to avoid complete rejection of your application? Sometimes you may be wondering, would my application be completely rejected? Yes, it can be. It has happened to me. We did a very large project for a very large customer. After 1 year, we went live, and within 1 month, the system was supposed to go live with many other countries, and the remaining countries completely rejected what we had done, and they restarted almost the project with another 6 months of timeline to get things right. Welcome to the second knowledge area in BABoK, which is elicitation and collaboration. Welcome back to the e-learning on BABoK version 3.0. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. We have so far discussed the introduction to BABoK, and we also looked at the knowledge area, BA planning and monitoring. And then comes the next knowledge area, which is elicitation and collaboration. So before we get into this particular knowledge area, let me narrate a very interesting episode, not a very happy one though, about one project where I was the business analyst. So this was a client in Europe, to be specific, in Spain. So we were rolling out an order management system across the nations in Europe. So Germany, France, Belgium, Switzerland, and Spain, and Portugal. Many countries were going live with this new system. And the country where I worked, Spain, was the very first country to go live with the system. So we were working for about a year, and then the go live happened. And the system was working well, no problem. On 21st of the month, we actually did 500 shipment of laptops. So this company was a large laptop manufacturer, is a large laptop manufacturer even today. And in fact, they are the company which invented laptops. So you can figure out which company did we work with. Then out of this 500 shipments that we did, one serial number was missed in the system. So those days we had much less trust on software. We always believed something can always go wrong with software. So we corrected it manually and we went ahead. On the last day of the month, we did shipment of more than 10,000 laptops. And that being the last day of the quarter as well, that was a very high sale day. And the distributors had sent their trucks to take the goods from the warehouse. And unfortunately, more than 5,000 serial numbers were missing in the system. I remember that night very well. Morning 2 o'clock, I am there. My colleague Gurpreet is there, who was from the technology side. And our client, Mr. Jose Maria Vidal, Jose was also there in the office. And this is the situation that we don't have a trace of 5,000 items in the system. And in Spain, there's a rule that every general ledger entry has to have a corresponding entry in the sales system. 2, these products are covered under global warranty. So without a serial number, the warranty system wouldn't work. So we became quite desperate, and we were thinking we will record these missing serial numbers in an Excel workbook, print a delivery challenge from the Excel workbook, because we were not knowing what happened. But fortunately, my colleague Gurpreet could figure out the issue, and he fixed the problem. That took him almost 24 hours of constant working on the system. Okay, recovered. But by that time, we had done enough damage to the project. So other countries which were supposed to go live after us, like France, Germany, they said, look at Spain, what happened to them? And Spain is a smaller country compared to us. If this is what happened to Spain, it is going to happen to us as well. So the entire project was pushed into the future by 6 months, because stakeholders believed that the system is actually not ready to be rolled out. And this should have happily costed the client maybe another 5 to 6 million euros. 200 plus team members working on the project, and the whole project getting sifted by 6 months. When I look back, the reason that it happened is we did not anticipate and capture the load on the system. In those days, we were very little bothered about non-functional requirements. And that is what caused the challenge in the system. All that we possibly needed was a much better server, which would have costed us $50,000 or $100,000 at most. And because of not having the right server, we caused a loss of 5 million euros to the client. Okay, so this is how a critical requirement can be. If you are careless and you do not capture all necessary requirements, this is what can happen to your project as well. So this is what we will do in this particular knowledge area. We will try to make sure that we do not miss any critical requirement from the project. And that is our aim in this particular knowledge area. So what is the knowledge area about? It is to collect complete requirements, both normal scenarios and exceptional situations, functional and non-functional requirements, from stakeholders, existing and competing systems, and documentation. Try making every requirement available. Does it mean every requirement will get implemented? No, don't think in that way, because requirements are expensive and stakeholders may decide to postpone some requirements or may not implement some requirements at all. But at least we are aware that such requirements exist, and we have taken a conscious call whether to implement the requirement or not to implement the requirement. Then you will also hear this term called collaboration in this knowledge area. And collaboration is the act of working together with the stakeholders towards accomplishing a common goal. This knowledge area has 5 tasks again, like the previous knowledge area. Prepare for elicitation, conduct elicitation, confirm elicitation results, communicate BA information, and manage stakeholder collaboration. Thank you so much for watching this short video. want to save millions of dollars for your company. It might look like an audacious dream for a business analyst, and how would one business analyst can save millions of dollars for the company? It is indeed quite possible. Let me give you an example of a company by the name Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs spends $8 billion on information technology projects in a year. I would assume at least 25% of this money must be going in developing new solutions for the organizations. It's very natural. You are not going to spend 100% of your money on just maintaining the systems. You would spend a good percentage of your money on development. That itself is $2 billion spent on software development. Take any other large enterprise. Like I worked with a client by the name Toshiba, and Toshiba had an annual budget of $2 billion for information technology, of which again 500 million will go in software development. Now, so much money gets spent in the organization, and there is a way that we can cut down on this development cost significantly. And how do we do that? By enabling the organization to reuse its requirements. When we reuse requirements, we can reuse design, we can reuse code, we can reuse test cases. Imagine, even if you can reuse 10% of the new development that you do, that would be 200 million for Goldman Sachs and 50 million for Toshiba. Welcome to another interesting episode on BABoK knowledge areas, and we are going to take a look at the fourth knowledge area in BABoK, which is requirements lifecycle management. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. So far, we have discussed the knowledge areas such as BA planning and monitoring and elicitation and collaboration. And now we are moving to the third knowledge area in BABoK, which is requirements lifecycle management. So before we get into the knowledge area, let me narrate an interesting story that I heard from one of my students. This wasn't the case with me, but it was a very interesting episode, interesting event, so I thought I'll capture it for you. So this client was into bus ticketing services, and they were, of course, selling the tickets online, and the ticket prices varied between, say, $75 to $100, $120, $150, depending on the distance that you are commuting. And on the website, the prices were mentioned as $120, 00 cents, $150, 00 cents. So one developer looked at the pricing and said, are we really going to sell at 00 cents? Unlikely, because most of the prices are in the multiples of $5. So the developer decided to drop this last two digits. So now numerically, $120.00 and $120 are same. But something interesting happened. Within next 3-4 hours, the company sold a lot of tickets, but it got very little money. And when they analyzed the situation and they kind of took action to stop that, they realized that there is a connected system which is selling the tickets at 1/100th price. So what was sold at $120 became $1.20. How did it happen? It happened because when the change was made to the original system, it had an interface to the subsequent system. And in the subsequent system, when the data was flowing, it did not have the ability to capture decimal, no special characters. In fact, some of you may do this little experiment to kind of make fun of how legacy systems still control our lives. Suppose I am writing a document called What is BABoK? So I would like to put a question mark at the end of the file name. Try doing it in Microsoft Windows. It will not allow you to put the question mark because the question mark is a special character and it is a reserved character. Similarly, this system, being a legacy system, did not have the ability to recognize decimal value. So what it used to do, it used to take the whole number series, take the last two digits as cents and the remaining as dollars. Now, when you truncated 120.00 into 120, now the other system started reading $20 as 20 cents. Why did it happen? It happened because often we're focusing on the change in the current system, forgetting that there is an impact on an associated system. This is something that we learn in requirements lifecycle management. We understand that requirements take birth, they mature, they grow, they become old, and at some point in time, they actually may become obsolete. How do we manage the entire life cycle of the requirement? That's the focus of requirements lifecycle management knowledge area. And what are the tasks that we'll be covering as part of this knowledge area? 1. Trace requirements. 2. Maintain requirements. 3. Prioritize requirements. 4. Assess requirements changes. And 5. Approve requirements. So let's take a look at each one of them individually so that we understand these concepts very, very well. Thank you so much for watching this short video. And I'm going to move to the next video, which is trace requirements. Thank you so much. How to come up with the best approach to our change? You must be wondering, can there be many approaches to a change? Of course. Suppose you want to build a new IT capability for your organization. So you want to have a fantastic human resource management system. You care about your people and you're a large company. Obviously, there is a need to have a good human resource management system. Can you build one? If you're an IT company, you can do. Can you buy one? You can. Can you rent one? You can. So there are many ways an IT capability can be enhanced for an organization. Which one is the best one? Welcome to the third knowledge area in BABoK, which is strategy analysis. My name is Alan Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. In this BABoK learning journey, we have discussed about the introduction to the business analysis body of knowledge. Then we talked about planning and monitoring. Then we talked about elicitation. Then we talked about requirements lifecycle management. And now we are in the fourth knowledge area, which is strategy analysis. Some of you may little wonder how come strategy analysis is not the first knowledge area and why it is kept a little bit away from the progress point of view. So please remember, when BABoK is talking about strategy analysis, it is primarily interested in IT change strategy analysis. So if you remember this long formula, long name, it will become a lot easier for you. And when you want to do IT change strategy analysis, by this time you must be familiar with the high-level requirements of the system. Without having a high-level requirement of the system, it's very difficult to come up with an IT change strategy. And that is possibly the reason why it is kept a little bit away from the other knowledge areas. So anyway, I believe all of us use this word called strategy quite often and it's probably the most abused management term, I would say. Everybody uses strategy for everything. So what is strategy and why is it important? Let's take a look. BABoK defines strategy in this manner. Strategy is about utilizing the capabilities of an enterprise in the most effective way to achieve organizational goals and objectives. So essentially, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make sure that given the strengths that we have, we are following the best possible path to reach our objective. So sometimes I take a very simple definition of strategy, and maybe you can apply it in many places, which is the best possible plan of action. So if you can find out the best possible plan of action, you have found a right strategy. So what does strategy analysis involve? It involves identifying and evaluating strategic business needs. Obviously, we are not going to do strategy analysis for every little change. That's not required. But if there is a big change coming in our way, there's a big need, then we must do strategy analysis. And it also helps the organization to achieve its objectives. And it also implies collaborating with stakeholders to align the resulting strategy with other strategies. Like say, for example, the organization may have a financial strategy, marketing strategy. So whatever strategy we come up with should align to the other strategies as well. So in strategy analysis, we have 4 tasks. So this is one of the knowledge areas which has lot lesser number of tasks compared to other knowledge areas. This has only 4. 1, analyze current state. 2, define future state. 3, assess risks. And 4, define change strategy. So these are the 4 tasks that are part of this knowledge area, and we would be looking at each one of them in depth. Thank you so much for watching these short videos. If you have any improvement suggestion, please feel free to write to us at info@adaptiveus.com. Thank you so much. Want to avoid last-minute spike in change requests, especially if you are working in a waterfall kind of environment. Many of us as business analysts who have spent some good time in the industry, and especially those of us who worked in long waterfall projects, maybe a year or a couple of years, we always encountered a situation when there were too many change requests popping up at the very last minute. Is there something that we can do to ensure that we have minimum change requests coming from our stakeholders? What is that we can do? Welcome to the 5th knowledge area in BABoK, which is Requirement Analysis and Design Definition. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. So far, we have discussed 4 knowledge areas of BABoK, starting with planning and monitoring. Then we discussed elicitation and collaboration. Then we discussed about requirements lifecycle management. And we also discussed about strategy analysis. Now we come to the 5th knowledge area in BABoK, which is requirement analysis and design definition. Whether you are going for ECBA or CCBA or cbap examination, this knowledge area carries the highest weightage in the examination. So obviously it makes sense for all of us to understand this knowledge area very well, because if we don't do well in this particular knowledge area, most likely we may not succeed in the examination. Now, before we get into this knowledge area and what it tries to achieve, let me tell you an interesting incident that happened with us. I and few of my colleagues, we had gone for auditing a very large bank in Middle Eastern part of the world. So this bank wanted a core banking system, and it budgeted $40 million for that project. So they created an RFP, they invited different suppliers, and they chose one company which was already having a core banking system, and they would modify the core banking system for the bank. So the partner started working on the project, and they came back about 1 year later with the modified product to the bank. The bank folks started testing. Within 2 weeks, they had 600 plus defects. So obviously the bank folks were very angry, because if you get 600 defects in just about 2 weeks and the plant testing period is about 3 months, you're likely to get 4,000 defects. And too many defects, and that would actually delay the entire project again. So they invited the supplier for a discussion, and they expressed their unhappiness. The supplier goes through the list of defects that the bank folks have reported, and then he says that these are mostly change requests. Why are you telling them as defects? So if you look at the conflict that's occurring between the supplier and the customer, it's quite interesting. Something that the customer tells as defect, the supplier tells it's a change request. How come the same line item having two types of interpretations by two different stakeholders? So if you look at a definition of a defect from a customer perspective, it's very simple. The system does not behave as I expect it to behave. That's what I will call it as a defect, because it's not behaving as I would like it to behave. For the supplier, the definition of defect is the system is behaving differently from what is specified. So the gap between expectation and specification creates this huge challenge, and it's not very uncommon. That is what the gap we are trying to minimize in this particular knowledge area. So what are we trying to do? If you have heard English saying, devil is in details, for business analysts like us, it's actually God is in details. Unless we provide the required detail to the developer will assume things. It's very natural. Okay. If they're intelligent enough, sometimes they question back, but mostly they may not question back. Okay, because they're also under pressure to get the product done. So, in this knowledge area, what are we trying to do? We're trying to specify requirements at a level that allows developers to develop systems according to stakeholder needs. So this is the knowledge area where stakeholder needs or requirements are translated into solution requirements. And this is very necessary, because developers always need much granular level of requirements compared to what stakeholders may be telling initially to us. And it's very natural that if you do not do proper requirements analysis, you will end up with a lot of change requests, like the project ended up with a lot of change requests or defects. So what are the tasks that we are going to develop and discuss here? One is specify and model requirements. 2, verify requirements. 3, validate requirements. 4, define requirements architecture. 5, define design options. And 6, analyze potential value and recommend solution. So in my next video, I'm going to talk to you about the very first task in this knowledge area, which is to specify and model requirements. Thank you so much. Is your organization paying for software which are hardly used? May sound like a little crazy stuff. Why would you pay for software which you are not using? But go back and audit the applications that you have. I'm 100% sure even in a tiny organization like Adaptive US, we would definitely have software and subscriptions for which we are paying money, but we are not using them. Nothing unusual. So, how do we really make sure that every solution for which we are paying, either directly as a cost of subscription or indirectly as a cost of maintenance, are these being used? If they are not being used, maybe possibly we should retire them, or are they not being used to the full extent that they can be used? Welcome to the last knowledge area in BABoK, which is solution evaluation. In fact, you should call this knowledge area as solution performance evaluation. This is not solution selection evaluation. A lot of times people get confused because solution selection is a different activity. Here we are more interested in understanding solution performance, evaluating solution performance, finding out why the solution performance is not as per expectation, and what can be done to improve solution performance. My name is Alan Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. So far, we have discussed 5 knowledge areas in BABoK, and we are going to the very last knowledge area, which is solution evaluation. Now, what is the purpose of solution evaluation? Why we need to do solution evaluation? Here is what BABoK says. It is to assess the performance of and value delivered by a solution. This is what BABoK is saying, because understand, even if we have taken all the care, there could be some reasons why the solution is not giving the best value that you would like to get. To remove obstacles that prevent the solution from realizing its full value. So there may be some obstacles which is coming in the way of the solution, which is why it is not getting the maximum value. So let me narrate a very interesting example with Adaptive itself. So we were building an internal project management tool for ourselves, and which we continue to use today, which is called IPM Pro. That's what manages our entire internal operations. We wanted to capture the defects in this because so that we can fix them. But we found most testers and developers are bypassing the system. They don't want to record the defect. The tester is sending a mail to the developer saying there is an issue, but it is not getting recorded in the system. So when we asked them, why are you not recording the defect in the system, which is what the management would like to do, they said it's cumbersome, it takes time to load, we have forgotten the password, it's an extra work, all kinds of, you may call excuses or limitations came to the front. Then we realized that it is actually a cumbersome thing for developers or testers when they're raising 20, 30, 40 defects. Then we changed the solution to adjust to the mode that developers and testers are used to, the email. So we said, now onwards, whenever you are sending the defect to the developer, please copy a system mail ID. And that mail ID would be read, and that data would automatically be transferred to the system. Once we incorporated this small change in the product, our defect capture became fantastic. So now you can imagine that a system being hardly used, it's now practically fully used. So this is how we can actually make our systems to give better value. And this is what we are going to study in this particular knowledge area. And there are 5 tasks that we will study in this knowledge area. 1, measure solution performance. 2, analyze performance measures. 3, assess solution limitations. 4, assess enterprise limitations. And 5, recommend actions to increase solution value. Thank you for watching this short video on the introduction to solution evaluation knowledge area. ensure stakeholder acceptance of the solution that we have built. As business analysts, we all realize that at the end of the day, if stakeholders don't accept the solution that we have built, then the solution is useless. So we should have a systematic method of ensuring that whatever our developer friends are building is ultimately will be accepted by our stakeholders. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. And today I'm going to speak to you about a very important technique which is called acceptance criteria. Acceptance and evaluation criteria. Acceptance and evaluation criteria define measures which can be used for assessing and comparing solutions or alternative designs. Coming to acceptance criteria describe minimal set of requirements to be met for a solution to be worth implementing. So, if a solution does not meet acceptance criteria, we are not going to accept the solution for our stakeholders' usage. Many of you might have heard this technique called must score technique, which is must have, should have, could have, won't have. So those which we say must have requirements will typically be part of our acceptance criteria. In fact, those of you who use agile methods, you must be writing acceptance criteria for a use case, which means if those conditions are met, then the user story is accepted, otherwise the user story is not accepted. And typically we use acceptance criteria only when one possible solution is being evaluated, and obviously we say whether something has passed the acceptance criteria or did not pass the acceptance criteria, which is essentially, you might have heard the test something like UAT, user acceptance test. Evaluation criteria defines a set of measures used to rank multiple solution options, solutions or solution components based on their value for stakeholders. So in evaluation criteria, we are basically trying to see multiple options and finding out which option is better than the other. So obviously evaluation criteria allows for a range of scores. And typically the evaluation criteria will contain value attributes, which are typically characteristics of a solution like its performance, applicability, scalability, reliability, etc., which determine the value for the users or stakeholders. BABoK expects that acceptance criteria must be expressed in a testable form. That means there should be a way to test the acceptance criteria. Evaluation criteria must be able to measure whether the features can provide value to stakeholders. Coming to the strengths of acceptance criteria, agile methodologies require requirements to be expressed as testable acceptance criteria. That's what I just discussed in user story. Necessary when requirements express contractual obligations. You have to be very careful with respect to contractual obligations, because if you put something into contractual obligations and you don't meet, there is a possibility that your stakeholder can take you to the court of law. Continuing with strengths, evaluation criteria helps in assessing diverse needs, defining priorities, and delivering estimated ROI. Coming to limitations, and as I said, if you have contractual obligations, they may become difficult to change for legal or political reasons. Achieving a common consensus on evaluation criteria can be quite challenging because stakeholders can have very different opinion on the parameters and their weightages for evaluation. To ensure stakeholder acceptance of the solution that we have built. As business analysts, we all realize that at the end of the day, if stakeholders don't accept the solution that we have built, then the solution is useless. So we should have a systematic method of ensuring that whatever our developer friends are building is ultimately will be accepted by our stakeholders. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. And today I'm going to speak to you about a very important technique in a series of videos that we are planning to make for our Inner Circle product, which is called Acceptance Criteria. As part of this series of videos, first we are preparing 50 examples of various BABoK techniques. So you would have studied the theory on BABoK techniques in our regular training schedule. And this is an attempt to give you additional information on how do we apply these techniques in a real life situation. So the project that we have taken up is called Grc Perfect, and this is a project that we did for a client. And I will give you a little bit context about the project in a minute's time. As part of Inner Circle, you get 1200 plus templates, plus about 100 plus videos, and we keep adding more templates and more videos, more guidelines, and more checklists almost on a monthly basis. So welcome to the episode number 1 of the Inner Circle BA Techniques training. And as I said, we are using this training to impart you practical knowledge on how do you use BABoK techniques in real life scenario. So first things first, as I said, I will tell you about the context of this organization for which this system was built. So this is a large IT services organization with about 10,000 employees spread across the globe. And they had 200 plus projects running at the same time. And obviously management found it very difficult to monitor, control the projects that were running in the organization. And that is where they engaged us to develop this system for them. And this system is called Grc Perfect, standing for governance, risk, and compliance. In fact, you will hear the governance word in BABoK as well, which is to monitor all the things that is happening within the organization. And this system would monitor project schedule, project defect, project risk, project issues, and compliance at the project level and at organization level as well. So now that you have heard a bit of a context about the project, let's see acceptance criteria for one of the features in the product. So the feature that we have picked up here is called schedule upload. Since many projects may have schedule in other forms, the client may have given them, or they may be more comfortable in creating schedule using some kind of a tool. The project managers requested for a feature to have schedule uploaded into the system. So for this schedule upload feature, there are some acceptance criteria that we have defined, which are as follows. 1, sample schedule template to upload shall be available. That means when the system goes live and people come to this particular feature, they will be able to see a template and download a template and use it for uploading the schedule. Option to upload project schedule file should be there. That's the basic feature of the product. Without this, of course, you are not going to go live. Then only Excel file templates are applied or allowed at this time. Because it's possible that people use some other templates like Word or some other PowerPoint or any kind of thing. So we have restricted, saying that we can take only data from Excel at this point in time. For if someone tries to upload file types which are not Excel, the system should give a warning saying that you are trying to upload an incorrect file template. Of course, you can write many more acceptance criteria. I'm just giving you some examples of developing acceptance criteria. And as you can see, as you discuss with stakeholders, they will keep telling you this is a must. Without this, we cannot go live. And those are the features that we need to take care of. Thank you for watching this video on acceptance criteria. We will continue our journey on other techniques in BABoK as well soon after this. How do we ensure that our stakeholders get maximum value from the investments that they are making? Is there a technique that can help us with respect to that? Let's take a look. My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. And I'm going to take you through the second technique in the series of videos that we are planning to make on the BABoK techniques and beyond BABoK as well over a period of time. The next technique that we are going to discuss is backlog management. I trust many of you would have heard the term product backlog in Agile world. This is very similar to what we are going to talk. Backlog management is used to record, track, and prioritize remaining work items. So what is backlog? Backlog is nothing but remaining work items. Backlog management refers to the planned approach to manage remaining work for the project. And obviously, since there can be a lot of remaining work, we must prioritize them. So items in the backlog are prioritized relative to each other. One may use multi-phased prioritization approach to backlog items. What does this term mean? It means initially you may prioritize things as per epics. And then once you get into an epic, you may prioritize the stories associated with the epics. Then you must describe the high priority backlog items in more detail, including their estimation. But you should not do much work on the lower down backlog items. So that means only focus on items which are on the top of the backlog, not at the bottom of the backlog. Remember, backlogs always change. You can add new items or change requirements to the backlog. You can remove items from the backlog when they are completed. And remember, a removed item also can be re-added to the backlog. So initially it was in backlog, it went out of backlog, and it came back to the backlog. Strengths of backlog are effective in changing stakeholder needs and priorities. So if you see, backlog management constantly tries to reprioritize the items on the backlog, and hence even if your needs are changing, you still can accommodate changing needs. Only items near the top of the backlog are elaborated and estimated in detail. So you save a lot of time because of that. And it's an effective communication vehicle. Coming to the limitations, obviously a large backlog would be difficult to manage. Then you need experience to break down the work when you are trying to do the estimation for high priority items. And it's possible because you are writing a very little information about a backlog item. Over time, you may forget what was the original intent behind the item. Back to our project context, let's take a look at the project context video, and then we will talk about this particular technique. Welcome to the project context video for Grc Perfect. Grc Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies: North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that you have watched the project context video, and today I'm going to talk to you about a very important technique called backlog management. In fact, backlog management has become very, very prevalent in the industry today due to the rapid adoption of agile way of working. In the olden days, when I started my BA career, we mostly did waterfall type of projects. And in those type of projects, backlog management wasn't a very big concern because we were trying to complete the entire project before we actually go live. But with agile-based projects, you are not doing that. You are trying to figure out which techniques or which features will add maximum value to stakeholders, and those features have to be picked up very, very early. Features which are not going to give that much value to the stakeholders, we will keep it to the back burner and we will do them later. So given the project context, here is the backlog for you at a very high level, of course. And when you pick up a schedule, pick up a backlog item, and these are mostly epics, or you can even call them as themes or module rather than calling them as stories, because these are very, very big items, and each item may take 20% months of effort to get completed. That's a lot of work. So even then, if you look at it, we have put the backlog saying which backlog comes first, which one comes second, which one comes third, which one comes fourth, and which one comes fifth, and which one comes sixth. So if you see, the requirement IDs are already having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, starting with that. So that indicates the priority in which we would like to go forward in the project. And of course, the backlog has very simple structure, usually a listed requirement. And then you could also have a size association so that you can figure out how much time this backlog item may take and what is the criticality of the backlog item and who is the user contact for the backlog item. Of course, when you get into this is more like at a release plan level, but if you are looking at a sprint planning level, you probably have to create a second level backlog item, which would have much more detailed user stories and such kind of thing, which you need to plan for different sprints. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions on the video series or anything that you would like to watch as a practicing BA, please feel free, happy to write to us at info@adaptiveus.com. Thank you so much. How to generate a lot of ideas in a very short span of time. As business analysts, we are always looking for new ideas, new suggestions, so that we can make our products and services better. Is there a technique that can help us? My name is Ellen Mishra, Principal Trainer and Business Analyst at Adaptive US. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a technique which has been used for a large number of years. It's nothing new, and many of you might have already played this particular technique, which is called brainstorming. You're watching this video as part of our Inner Circle BA Techniques training, and we have many more artifacts, documents, templates, guidelines, and videos to help you in your day-to-day BA work as part of our Inner Circle product. Now we are going to discuss a very versatile technique called brainstorming. In fact, brainstorming as a technique possibly can be used with any activity that you do. And how did this term brainstorming came? It essentially is to storm your brain. That means think. Think as creatively as possible. So during brainstorming, group of stakeholders deliberate on an idea. It encourages participants to use new ways of looking at things to heighten creativity. So what are the steps for brainstorming? First, prepare for brainstorming. Develop a clear and concise definition of the area of interest. Determine a time limit for which you are going to do brainstorming. Identify a facilitator and the participants. Aim for 6 to 8 participants. We usually don't have a very big group for brainstorming because it may become very difficult to manage a large group. Set expectations on how to do the brainstorming. Essentially, one of the very key rule is not to criticize anybody's idea, and then establish an evaluation criteria as to how the outcomes of the brainstorming will be evaluated. Then we have our session which we conduct. So during the session, we of course share our ideas and we visibly record all the ideas so that people can see them. And then of course, we should encourage creativity during brainstorming. Then finally, we have a wrap-up session where we evaluate ideas using predetermined evaluation criteria, and we create a condensed list of ideas because a lot of ideas can overlap, a lot of ideas may be similar, they should be in a particular group, all that we do as part of wrap-up. And of course, rate the ideas and distribute final list of ideas to appropriate stakeholders. Strengths of brainstorming: it's an excellent way to foster creative thinking. It can be quite a bit of fun, engaging and productive session. You can elicit many ideas in a short period of time, and it can be useful to reduce tension during a workshop. Suppose two groups of stakeholders are not agreeing, then you can actually run a short brainstorming session which would basically elevate people and reduce the tension during the workshop. However, there are some limitations as well. It depends on participants' creativity and willingness to participate. Organizational or interpersonal politics may limit participation, and participants must agree to avoid debating during brainstorming. This is a rule that we must follow. So, as we have been discussing all the techniques for our product called GRC Perfect, let's take a look at the context for GRC Perfect, and from there we will take a look at the technique and how we applied this technique in many situations in our project, but I will kind of be illustrating just one particular instance. Welcome to the project context video for GRC Perfect. GRC Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies: North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different. How often it has happened that you wanted to communicate something to your developer friend, but the output that you received differed significantly? And often we may blame it on the developer not knowing the business world, but let's remember developers are supposed to know the technology world, not the business world. The business world understanding is our responsibility. So is there a way that we can communicate our requirements extremely clearly to our developer friends? Let's take a look. My name is Alan Mishra. I work as the principal BA and trainer at Adaptive US. And today I'm going to talk to you about a very interesting technique which I have personally found extremely valuable and very, very effective in ensuring that my understanding and my stakeholders' understanding gets conveyed to the developers very, very clearly. And that's data dictionary. The next technique that we will learn is data dictionary. As you understand the word dictionary, a dictionary defines a word. Similarly, a data dictionary defines our data elements very clearly. So a data dictionary comprises of standard definitions of the primitive data elements, their meanings, allowable values, and indicate how those elements combine into composite data elements. So essentially we can explain all the primitive or the primary data elements, and then we will also figure out how to create composite data elements. So sometimes you may be thinking, what is a primary data element and what's a composite data element? So the primitive data element could be a person's first name, middle name, and last name. Whereas a composite data element would be name, which would comprise of first name, middle name, and last name. Data dictionary also is known as metadata repository. So what are primitive data element properties that we need to capture? Their name, aliases if any, values, meanings, and description. For composite data elements, as we said, this is assembled from primitive data elements. And composite structures include sequence, in what order these are organized, repetition, in case you would like to repeat any data element, and optional element. Maybe some element is not mandatory in the structure all the time. Strengths of data dictionary are: it ensures all stakeholders are in agreement on format and content of relevant information. So this is very helpful in terms of communicating data elements for any system. Capturing these definitions in a single model ensures consistent usage, which is true. However, there are some limitations as well. It can become obsolete unless maintained. This is applicable for almost all definition oriented techniques like data dictionary or glossary. Unless you maintain them, they will become obsolete. And you must consider different scenarios. You can't only have happy path scenario and maintain data dictionary for that. You need to look at exception scenarios as well and capture the data for that as well. And of course, as we said, it needs maintenance. Before we jump into data dictionary, let's take a quick look at our project context video, and then we will come back and discuss about a worked out example based on our own project. Welcome to the project context video for Grc Perfect. Grc Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies: North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now, this is how we created our data dictionary. In fact, we had many more columns, but from an example point of view, it's very difficult to do it in a video. So in the book and in our template library, you will actually find a data dictionary which is a lot more exhaustive than this. But from a concept point of view, please understand. So we want to describe the schedule elements. So we have put schedule description, schedule start date, schedule end date, assigned to, and status as the sample data elements. And these are the attributes that we are explaining it to our developer friend. So what type of data element is it? Is it date? Is it number? Is it text? Is it a lookup value? How do you want the data to be represented? What is the length of the data? So if you observe here, we have put the date format as DD, MON, YYYY. So this is the format which I have found extremely clear to anybody who is looking at the data, because this data format cannot go wrong in United States, it cannot go wrong in United Kingdom. So whichever part of the world you go, this date format will work for you. Then we also have added a column called validation, like a schedule description should have minimum 2 characters, an end date can't be in future. Okay, so these are some kind of validations that we are trying to put. But for a more exhaustive data dictionary template, do take a look at the template store that we have in Inner Circle. Thank you so much for watching this video from Adaptive. As I said before, you have thousands of templates and hundreds of videos in our Inner Circle product. I encourage you to come and have a look at it. Thank you so much. How to elicit requirements without any stakeholders? Isn't it looking like a paradox? We always say stakeholders are the primary source of requirements. So is it possible to elicit requirements without any stakeholders? In fact, it is possible. And let's learn about it. Welcome to the episode number 24 of Inner Circle. In this series of videos, we are talking about BA techniques with worked out examples. And today's technique is document analysis. My name is Ellen Mishra. I work as the principal trainer and business analyst at Adaptive US. Now we are going to learn a very important and useful elicitation technique, which is called document analysis. And this is one of the preferred techniques that I use as the very first technique when I go for elicitation. The reason being, document analysis does not require you to involve stakeholders. This is something that the BA can do himself or herself. So obviously it's easier to plan and execute compared to other elicitation techniques which require stakeholder involvement, like say interviews or workshops. So what's document analysis? See, document analysis essentially is to go through available documentation used to elicit. Document analysis can be effectively used to elicit any business analysis information especially preliminary business analysis and information. It also helps us in understanding the context of a business need, because obviously there can be some proposal document or there can be some previous system about which we can read and understand why this system is being built. So what are the steps for conducting document analysis? The first state is to prepare, means what all documents should I study, from where can I get them. To perform document review and analysis, so you essentially go through the documents available to you and then record those findings in some place. What are the strengths of this technique? As we saw before, you use existing source material for analysis, so you are not creating new material. That's the second good point. Third, whatever you get from document analysis, it can be used to compare against other techniques. Suppose if you conducted an interview, is it matching with what your documentation says? And you can always make the documentation available in easy to understand formats like table or a diagram. What are the limitations? It is limited to as is perspective. That means because documentation is only for the current system, so you get the current perspective, not the future perspective. 2, often the documentation is not up to date, so that's another challenge that we face. And of course, sometimes you may not have authors for clarification because documentation may have been done quite some time back. And it is time consuming, and often you may get a lot of document to read. So obviously one must be careful about which documents to read and how many documents one can read. Before I take you through a journey of document analysis, let's take a look at the project context that we are having, which is the governance, risk and compliance management system for an IT services company. Welcome to the project context video for Grc Perfect. Grc Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies: North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that you have watched the video, then you realize that the compliance requirements are coming from different standards. So the organization has decided to follow one standard called CMMI, which stands for Capability Maturity Model Integrated. CMMI is a hugely popular project governance standard which companies across the globe follow. It comes from US Department of Defense, and often a CMMI level 3 is a mandatory requirement if you want to pitch for any government project in United States. Now, when we look at the product that we're trying to build, CMMI actually gives us a lot of requirements. And in this particular one, I'm putting about requirements coming from a process area called requirements management. And what are the requirements that CMMI is placing on our governance system? It is saying that every acceptance criteria must have a clear definition. That means the acceptance criteria can be understood very clearly. It does not have ambiguity. Then adequacy of planning based on specified requirements. That means you should ensure that you're doing enough planning for the specified requirements. Then capture of information related to requirements change. Again, this is also applicable in BABoK, those of you who read BABoK. In fact, you will find a lot of commonality between BABoK and CMMI as well. So it's essential that whenever requirements change, we capture why they are being changed, who is changing them, when is it changing, all that kind of information. Maintenance of bi-directional traceability matrix. Again, this comes in BABoK as well. So CMMI expects that your system should support bi-directional traceability, consistency of requirements, plans, activities, and work products, approval of change requests after due impact analysis. This is in fact pretty much what we study in BABoK as well. So look at this. These requirements we did not take from any stakeholder. Rather, we took it from a document which is published by the CMM Institute, and we are looking at the CMM Institute's document to create requirements for our governance product. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please feel free to come and take a look at our website, adaptiveus.com. We have thousands of such videos, guidelines, and templates and documents, all for the consumption of the business analysts across the globe. Thank you so much. How to minimize confusion among stakeholders. This is an interesting task for all business analysts. After all, we are communicators among the stakeholders. We ensure that all stakeholders understand things well and in the correct way. So welcome to episode number 29 of Inner Circle Training from Adaptive US. We are discussing various BA techniques with worked out examples, and today's topic is glossary, and it's a very interesting one, and I'm going to narrate you a very personal experience with this particular technique and how lack of this technique troubled me. My name is Ellen Mishra. I work as the principal trainer and business analyst at Adaptive US. And let me narrate one particular incident that happened with me when I was consulting a client for a new system that they were trying to build. And I was in the middle of a discussion with quite a few senior members of the client team, and they were all domain experts. And they somehow started using a term called Masai conversion. And it didn't make sense to me. I kind of didn't understand what they're trying to say. And the whole meeting went wasted for me. And I was young. I didn't ask what does it mean. Maybe I would have made a fool of myself right now, but I made a fool of myself actually by not asking that. So I came out of the meeting and I asked one of the domain SME saying, what is this Masai word that you guys kept on using? Then she told me, Masai is actually not Masai, it's MySai. And the MySai stands for an acronym called Multi-Angle Instrument to Single Angle Instrument. Because this was a company into paint manufacturing and we had to capture color. And for capturing color, there were old techniques, old instruments, and now you have new instruments. But if you capture some information on the new instrument, it needs to be converted into the old instrument format, and that is what this conversion would do. So now you can see if I would have understood the term, it would have made a lot of sense. So glossary is going to help us in a big way. The next technique that we are going to discuss is glossary. Let me narrate a very real life story that happened with me when I was consulting a client. I was invited to a discussion with many domain SMEs for a particular program, and I was just 1 week old into the assignment. During the discussion, these domain SMEs, they started discussing something called Masai conversion. Masai conversion will do like this, Masai conversion is needed, Masai conversion cannot do this. So I was a bit surprised, I was not knowing what is this Masai, and I thought it must be a Japanese scientist name because the client belonged to more like a scientific organization. And I could not follow anything of the discussion because the term Masai was not known to me. When I came out of the discussion and I asked one of the domain SMEs, what is this Masai conversion? She said it is Masai conversion, not Masai. And the Masai stands for multi-angle instrument to a single angle instrument. Essentially, it's an instrument or a program which converts a multi-angle measurement into a single angle measurement. But since I did not know this term, I was in deep loss. Another challenge I found in that project was people would call the same thing in multiple names. They would call some physical entity which is very similar as pigment, as toner, as colorant. And obviously it made us much more difficult for our programmers to understand, are they talking the same thing or different thing? It all happened because we did not have a right glossary, or even if a glossary existed, we did not follow that glossary in the right way. Since projects involve many stakeholders and it's possible that stakeholders use different terminology for the very same thing, it is essential that we have a glossary developed and enforced in the project. Now, what's a glossary? So, a glossary comprises of key terms relevant to a business domain, provides a common understanding of the terms, contains definitions and synonyms. It is unique to a domain. So please understand glossaries vary as per domain. It is commonly used and you include terms which are commonly used, meaning, but it is different from which is used within the domain. So you may have a very specific meaning for customer compared to how we generally perceive a customer is. So what are the strengths of glossary? If you look at it, it promotes communication and common understanding of the business domain. It acts as a single reference and encourages consistency because we have written down terms. It simplifies the writing and maintenance of BA information like requirements, business rules, etc. But what are the limitations? Obviously, you need dedicated person to update and maintain the glossary. Unless glossary is maintained, it can become obsolete very soon. And sometimes stakeholders may not agree on a term as well. So you have to have stakeholder consensus to build a glossary. And let's see how glossary can help our project called GRC Perfect. Welcome to the project context video for GRC Perfect. GRC Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies, North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that we have watched this particular video on our context, I have put a sample glossary document in front of you. It's not complete, but as you can see, there are different terms that we have used here, like BRD, called Business Requirements Document. And in many places, actually, people may call BRD in other names as well, like FRD or FRS or BRS. These are very, very popular terms that people use in place of BRD. Similarly, NFR stands for non-functional requirements, SLA stands for service level agreement, WBS stands for work breakdown structure, and then there is something called matrix and metrics, which is sometimes people get confused because they sound similar. So matrix is actually a table and a matrix indicates measurement. Similarly, a term like defect may be called as error, bug, or issues in the system. So this is how you can build a simple glossary document for your project and possibly for your organization as well, because a lack of glossary will obviously result in a fair bit of confusion among stakeholders. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can find hundreds of such videos, templates, guidelines, checklists as part of our Inner Circle product. So do visit our website and explore the product. Thank you so much. Here is a little quiz, very short quiz for you. What's world's #1 elicitation technique? Is that truly #1 elicitation technique? It does exist. And what's that? Welcome to episode number 31 of Inner Circle Training from Adaptive US. We are discussing in a series of videos about various BA techniques one can use as part of his or her work. And today we are going to talk about the most popular elicitation technique, which happens to be interviews. Interviews are a great technique because you can build personal rapport. You're talking to the stakeholder one-on-one. Often stakeholders will tell you things in interviews which they may not tell in a group setting, because usually in a group setting, people may be a little bit more reserved because they may perceive that somebody is judging them in the group setting. So interviews are a fantastic technique, and I trust all of us will learn how to do good interviews. Let's learn about the next elicitation technique, and this is probably the most common form of elicitation technique, which is interviews. I trust many of you may have conducted interviews already as part of your business analysis activities. So what are interviews? So as we said, it's the most common form of elicitation technique. And in an interview, interviewers ask questions to stakeholders. Effective interviewers control discussions. They understand needs from all stakeholders. They probe deeper when needed, and they ensure completeness of answers from stakeholders. How do you make an interview successful? These are the factors that you should look for. One, domain understanding of the interviewer. So if you are the BA, you must understand the domain. What does this domain tries to do? Two, interviewer skill in documenting, essentially because interview will throw up a lot of data which you need to document. Interviewee readiness. Are your participants ready for the interview? Clarity in interviewee's mind. It is very essential. If you have not chosen the right interviewees, then you may not get right requirements. And of course, the rapport between interviewer and interviewee. So what are the steps that we must conduct for interview? First one is to prepare. As part of prepare, we define interview goal, identify potential interviewees, develop interview questions, we organize logistics, and then we move to our next step, which is to conduct the interview. Okay. So as part of that, what we do, we have an opening event where we essentially ask people to be ready for the interview. We set the rules, maybe we do a personal introduction, all that we do. Then during the interview, it is very essential that we maintain our focus, because sometimes the interviewer can take you, or interviewee can take you to a path which you don't want to follow or you should not be following. Then we of course have to change our style and questions based on the information that is coming from the interviewees. Sometimes we have to provide necessary information as well. And then finally, we come to the state where we close an interview. So you essentially check for the areas that you may have overlooked, and then provide your contact information for the interviewee to come back to you, and then summarize the discussions that you had. And of course, do not forget to thank interviewees for their time. And after we close, we must have a follow-up activity where we organize interview information and confirm results quickly. So what are the strengths for interviews? It encourages participation. It builds rapport with the stakeholders, which is a very important activity that we must conduct. It's a very simple and direct technique, allows discussions and explanations, allows observations of non-verbal behavior. So you must keep an eye on whether the stakeholder is showing interest, not showing interest. And you can always ask follow-up and probing questions. Some techniques like survey and all don't provide you those flexibility. But however, interview also has many limitations. One, you need significant time to plan for and conduct interviews. It requires a good amount of commitment and involvement from stakeholders. You need to be trained in conducting interviews, and sometimes we can interpret things differently than what the interviewee said. So one has to be careful. So before we begin, I would like you to take a look at our GRC system project details and context, and then we will get into the technique. Welcome to the project context video for GRC Perfect. GRC Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies: North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that you have watched the context video, I couldn't show you the entire transcription of the discussion. Maybe it's good to have a video created on that itself, but you will need at least 2 or 3 participants to join, and possibly we'll make it post-COVID world. So right now we have created a transcription which is available in the Word file, and please take a look at the Word file where the business analyst is interviewing the sponsor of the project to understand the expectations of the sponsor from the GRC system. Thank you so much for watching our videos. You will find many more such videos, guidelines, and templates at adaptiveus.com/inner-. Ask you a very simple and important question. As a business analyst, what is the best technique that we have to get first-hand business analyst experience? And something that you can do without significant involvement of other stakeholders. Welcome to episode number 37 of Inner Circle Training. We have been discussing about various business analysis techniques with an worked out example from a live project. My name is Alan Mishra. I am the principal BA and trainer at Adaptive US. And today we are going to talk about a very important technique called observation, which can be extremely effective for elicitation. The next elicitation technique that we would learn is observations. Observations are also known as job shadowing or following people around. So as you would have guessed from the name, it essentially involves observing a process or participating in a process. So observation is used to elicit information by viewing and understanding activities and their contexts. So essentially you go down to the place where the activity is happening and you observe how things are happening. It involves examining a work activity as and when it is performed. So it's real activity being observed. There are 2 kinds of observations that we talk about. One, we call it as active or noticeable observation, and the second one is passive and unnoticeable observation. In active observation, you can actually interrupt the person and ask questions in between, whereas in passive observation you are not supposed to do that. You are supposed to wait till the end of the observation process to ask questions. What are the steps? First, have your objectives ready. 2, of course, prepare, and I think this is a very common theme that you will see throughout BABoK. Then, of course, conduct the observation session and confirm and present observation results. So what are the strengths of observation? It provides realistic and practical insight into business processes because you are actually going and seeing things, and you can actually make recommendations for improvement, and you have really observed them on ground. So it's not that something that you're imagining. And you could actually identify informally performed tasks and workarounds which may not be documented. But what are the limitations? Of course, you can do observation only for existing processes. Then it is time consuming and it can be disruptive for the stakeholders. And participants may alter work practices because they know that you are observing them. And of course, you can't evaluate knowledge-based activities because from outside you cannot see what a person is thinking. So before we get into the technique, let's take a look at our context video, which is on the Grc system that we are trying to build for a client. Welcome to the project context video for Grc Perfect. Grc Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies, North America, Asia, Europe, Australia, and the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that you have observed the context video and you also have looked at the theoretical understanding of this technique, let me explain one of the processes which can be very effectively done through an observation technique, which is IT assets reconciliation process. As all of us know that in any organization there are thousands of IT assets which are there and they need to be physically tracked, because sometimes it may so happen that the asset may be listed in the books but it really isn't there in the organization. So the organization needs to figure out, are these assets there? If they are not there, where are they? Is it with some employee who has taken it home? Or whatever be the case, they need to reconcile these assets. And in the document that we have provided along with this particular video, in that we have detailed out how the whole IT assets reconciliation process began, how the business analyst participated in that process, and thus by participating in the process, he or she could actually list all the requirements that would be necessary for building this particular system. Thank you for watching this video. As I have been telling before, we have hundreds of useful BA videos, 1,000 plus BA templates in our product called Inner Circle. So do come over and explore the product and utilize it to perform your business analysis activities effectively at your workplace. Thank you so much. Hello, my business analysis friends. This is one very short and sweet question to all of us. Is there a technique that we can use effectively to deliver value quickly and promptly to our stakeholders? As business analysts, we must be value focused and we must understand what should we be doing in order to deliver value in a short span of time? Welcome to episode number 40 of Inner Circle Techniques Training. And we have been discussing about various BA techniques with an worked out example for our reference. And today we are going to talk about a technique by the name prioritization. My name is Alan Mishra. I work as the principal trainer and business analyst at Adaptive US.
The next technique that we are going to discuss is prioritization. As the name suggests, prioritization deals with techniques that one can use to prioritize one aspect over another. So prioritization provides a framework for stakeholders, decisions, and to understand the relative importance of BA information. Anytime you hear the term BA information, mentally translated to requirements, essentially, how do we prioritize requirements? Importance may be based on value, risk, or difficulty of implementation or other criteria. So the different techniques that we use for prioritization, one is grouping, one is ranking, one is time boxing and budgeting. In grouping, we basically put the requirements into critical, not critical, or you can use a Moscow technique as well. In ranking, you put the requirements in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going up to say 100 or 150 depending on number of requirements you have. In time boxing or budgeting, what you try to do is you figure out that we have so much time available in our hand and what can we do within that time period. Can be through negotiation as well. Strengths of prioritization. It facilitates consensus building and trade-offs. It ensures solution value is realized. It assists in meeting initiative timelines. So what are the limitations? The limitations are often stakeholders don't make difficult choices and they don't agree to trade-offs, which becomes difficult. Then absence of metrics and KPIs may make the process subjective. So unless you really have a quantitative way to decide on prioritization, people may perceive that to be subjective process. It's also possible that the solution team may unduly influence the prioritization process.
So before we get into the technique, let's watch the context video for us, which is on the GRC project that we are trying to develop for our client, which is a governance, risk, and compliance management system. Welcome to the project context video for GRC Perfect. GRC Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies, North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world, and it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. Now that we have watched our context video, here is some requirements which I have put in front of you. And if you observe, I have used two columns, one called value indicator and one called cost indicator, in order to come up with the priority for the requirement. So we basically divide the value by the cost, and wherever the priority, the cost, the value is higher, much higher than cost, that automatically picks up a higher priority number, and hence we have put a priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the requirements that we have received from our stakeholders. So remember, prioritization helps us to deliver value quickly to our customers. It also helps us to de-scope the project in case for some reason we have to cut down on the project cost or project timeline, and prioritization will be very, very helpful in that case. Thank you for watching this video. Again, as I said before, do explore Inner Circle product from Adaptive. We have put in more than 1,000 templates, 100 plus videos for you to perform your BA work effectively. Thank you so much. As business analysts, often we need to demo our future processes to our stakeholders, even sometimes our current processes as well. Is there a technique that will help us to do that effectively, communicate the process challenges that we have? How is the process done today? So let's learn the technique which will help us explain our current and future processes to our stakeholders. Welcome to the episode number 41 of Inner Circle Business Analysis Techniques Training. My name is Ellen Mishra. I work as a principal trainer and consultant at Adaptive US. And today I'm going to talk to you about a very important technique called process modeling. Welcome back to the video learning module on Business Analysis Body of Knowledge Techniques. And we are going to discuss another extremely important and widely used technique by business analysts, which is process modeling. So process modeling is essentially a standardized graphical model used to describe the sequential flow of work or activities. So essentially it shows the different activities that any process executes, and it can be at multiple levels. It ideally should be at multiple levels because an organization is a complex entity. It runs many processes, and trying to draw all of them at one go can be very difficult. So what can they be used for? To describe the context of a solution or part of the solution, describe the as-is processes or to-be processes, to make the textual description visual, and it provides a basis for process analysis. There are many notations that people use as part of process model. It could be flow charts, value stream mapping, UML diagrams, BPMN, and many other like SciPoc and all. So what are the strengths? It's a very simple technique, and most stakeholders understand process models. Multiple levels can be helpful for multiple perspectives, can show a large number of scenarios, and can be very useful training and coordination. But sometimes it also can be perceived as a document heavy approach because it does require a lot of documentation
can become quite complex and unwieldy, and it may be difficult to find a single person who can sign off on an entire process. And obviously, it is not designed to show us process problems.
Before we get into process modeling, I would like you to watch a short video on the project context that we are talking about, which is the GRC system, Governance Risk Compliance Management System, and how we have used process modeling as part of this particular technique implementation. Welcome to the project context video for GRC Perfect. GRC Perfect was developed for a very large IT services firm. It had close to 17,000 employees across multiple geographies, North America, Asia, Europe, Australia. And the organization had grown pretty rapidly from an employee size of about 500. They have grown to 15,000 plus in just about 10 years' time. With growth comes its own challenges. Number of projects has grown, but project monitoring has become a lot more difficult. And since the organization is operating in multiple geographies, it also needs to take care of various compliance requirements that come from different geographies and different clients as well, and internal compliance needs as well. So given all this fact, the organization decided to have a comprehensive GRC system, which would be governance, risk, and compliance management system. This system would not only be monitoring projects, it would also be monitoring programs, accounts, and business unit performance. It will track project schedule, defect, risk, issues, billing, those kind of aspects. It will also ensure compliance to various regulatory and customer and internal requirements for various projects. That's the project that we are trying to build, which will be deployed across the world. And it will be catering to many types of project categories like software development, software maintenance, testing, package implementation, and many other such types of projects. This is the project context based on which we will be discussing all our techniques. Thank you so much. So as you can see here, we have drawn a process model which is indicating how schedule gets created in the GRC system. So you can see there is a role called project manager, there is a role called GRC Perfect, and there is a role called developer. And how the PM is initiating the project schedule, it is the system, GRC system is creating the automatic schedule, the project manager is updating it, and the developer is also updating it, and finally the project comes to an end. So we have used this tool called Bizazi BPM to draw this process model, and we do conduct a training on Bizazi BPM as well. It's one of the nicest BPM tools that you can get in the market, and on top of it, it is free as well. Thank you so much for watching this short video. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please write to us at info@adaptiveus.com. And if you would like to learn about a particular technique, and there's a good demand that everybody says that that's a great technique to learn, we will create short template videos or a template and a video for you to use that technique. Thank you so much.